Thank you.
Hey. Okay. So obviously I wanted to start from the introduction, which was already done, so I'm gonna skip that part. Welcome to our presentation, Demystifying Blockchain, the past, the present, and the future. We're gonna take you on a short journey through the history of the blockchain industry, so-called Web3. We're gonna tell you a little bit about what happened before, what's happening in the space right now, and what we think is gonna be happening in the near future. So, I'm Bartek, this is Justyna, and here we go. Starting with the past. So everything started, I think, with the piece of scientific work created by Nick Szabo. The title of that work was Formalizing and Securing Relationships on Public Networks. Does anyone know when was that work created? Like roughly, more or less. I want to hear like one guess, at least, from anyone. Close, but maybe too brave, a little bit too brave. No, it was 90s. It was actually 90s. It was written in 1997. So that work told us about smart contract. Told us it was about creating distributed payment system. It was about creating ways of communicating with each other and enforcing law without the necessity of putting this on paper and locating in some trusted setup. So it sounds like blockchain, sounds like Web3, though this idea is very old and very mature at this stage. It wasn't brought to life for many years though, and it was first turned into reality slightly more than 10 years later with the appearance of Bitcoin. Obviously, I think everyone heard about Bitcoin, no doubt about that. After Bitcoin, shortly emerged many copies that changed something a little bit. They were slightly faster, slightly better, slightly more secure. They had slightly better hashing algorithms, slightly more privacy. They were just the same thing with slightly different flavor. Or they were just funnier, or they were created to be more appealing to the broader community. Though it wasn't that large of an innovation. It was still the same one thing, Bitcoin. Crazy times back then. You could, mine cryptocurrencies with Raspberry Pi and became a millionaire or even a billionaire. You could, buy a pizza with 10k BTC. Everyone remembers these times. I mean, at least from, like the pop culture and how, mining and buying pizza works. Though, this is not what blockchain is about, because saying that blockchain or Web3 is about mining cryptocurrencies is like saying that internet is about laying cables. Like, we all love internet, though it's not cables that we love. Obviously, everyone needs to use that, but it's not the thing that this is all about. When we think about internet, we think about, streaming services, we think about games, we think about videos, funny cuts, whatever else. Though cables is something that's interesting to some, people that just work on that. And the same thing with Web3 and blockchain. Mining and all that cryptocurrency stuff, this is just like the technicalities that are under the hood of the whole thing, not the essence. And the whole thing was about to change with the introduction of Ethereum.
Yeah, so Ethereum is another blockchain, but it implements smart contracts that Nick Szabo told us about in 90s. So here is the very simple difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. So in Bitcoin we have three main values, actually, parameters of the transaction. So it's from, to, and value. So who sends Bitcoin to whom, and what's the value of this transaction. But in Ethereum we have additional parameter, which is data. So right now we could send anything, any text to anyone. And for example, we could change the state, because Ethereum introduces smart contracts and allows us to change the state of the blockchain in a different way. So now we could, for example, have an application there and call functions within transaction. And it allowed us to create something like ICO, which is initial coin offering. So here, anyone could write a white paper and say people, okay, here is my idea, I will do that, I will create this project, give me your money, I will do that and in some near future we will capitalize on that. Like the fact that anyone could do that doesn't mean that one should. And here we have the most ridiculous example of ICO, which they said explicitly, okay, this is useless token, buy it, and we are honest, it will do nothing. And actually people bought it. And this ended up with this huge skyrocketing of Ethereum price. And can you see here the chart of .com bubble? Can you see the analogy here? So anyone with .com in the name of your project got money from the market, and the same was with blockchain, actually, with Ethereum, that anyone who wrote the white paper got money for nothing. And another actually trend or like invention of that times were NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. Can you see CryptoPunks here? So they were invented at that times, and they were for free. So anyone could mint any CryptoPunk. Another funny game that was invented then were CryptoKitties, and they were sweet kitties that you can create, you can feed, and breed. So you could create new kitties, and some of them were very unique, and they were sold for a lot. And here we have, like, some say that this is the most expensive CryptoKitty. Can you guess the value of this CryptoKitty? How many Ether for this sweet cat? Anyone? $100 million. What about Ether? Around? Okay, not that much, but it was like sold for 225 Ether. So like currently is around $500,000. Yeah, maybe. So this is like currently the CryptoKitty was. Yes, so the actual kitty was sold for this amount of Ether. So someone in exchange for this kitty got 225 Ether, and like currently the value, if you take the price today, you'll have this amount of dollars.
That value is just someone's willingness to pay that much.
Exactly.
It's just this.
So this is the historical transaction, okay? So we are talking about the past here. Okay, so this created a problem because now everyone wanted to feed their kitties, and the network was, like, wasn't enough to execute so many transactions. And this is how much the traffic increased at these times. So people started asking questions. Does Ethereum scale?
Yes, and with this question, we actually continue with the present. And the answer to the question posed a second ago is, well, it depends, but yes. So Ethereum itself doesn't scale that much as of today, though we are able to build a so-called layer 2 scalability solutions on top of Ethereum blockchains that still source their security in the Ethereum blockchain. They'll still use Ethereum block space to store all of the necessary data, but we do not process each subsequent transaction as a separate transaction, though we just bundle them off-chain in some other type of network and then submit all those bundles to the Ethereum network. That increases the efficiency of these transactions, like tenfold or even more, or 100-fold. It depends on the actual solution. They have like different processing times. They have different paces. They have different sort of types of security. Though with them, we can actually answer that the whole Ethereum ecosystem can scale and is scaling right now. So if we answer the question that Ethereum ecosystem, with all of the side chains, all of the alternative layer 1 compatible solutions, and with all of the layer 2 solutions is scaling, then why is it scaling? Let's review what was happening before. We had the ICO phase, and we said that most of these projects were ridiculous and most of them failed. Though it wouldn't be fair to say that all of them failed, because that's not true. From the ICO craziness and ICO sort of insanity, some projects actually showed their value and were established for good and survived the years of the bear market and created actual value. Most of them contribute to the space that is being right now called DeFi. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. And decentralized finance is sort of an ecosystem of different projects, applications, protocols that provide financial services on top of the Ethereum blockchain. One might say, okay, so blockchains are not very efficient for microtransactions. When do I pay for coffee when the transaction costs, for example, $1? You're right. For microtransactions, the layer 1 mainnet Ethereum is not the best. For that, we'll have the layer 2 solutions. But if you are transacting millions of dollars, $1 or $2 or $10 for the transactions is crazy, crazy cheap. It's super cheap. And few minutes to process compared to days in traditional banking system is actually blazing fast. So there are stablecoins created on top of Ethereum blockchain. So coins that do not fluctuate in value, that do not are not speculative, that do not that are not subject to all of the changes on the market. They just always express the value of, in these cases, $1, but there are like euro stablecoins or other fiat currency stablecoins. Then, on top of the stablecoins, there are lending protocols created that allow people to deposit their stablecoins and earn yield on top of that, while other people were able to borrow these stablecoins and do something with that. Whatever they want to do. They only needed to provide a collateral, and after that, there was a source of cheap credit for them. And it's important to mention that all that stuff is super extremely efficient, because now we do not have a banking system with thousands of physical spots with 10 employees in each one of them. We only have a bunch of smart contracts that run somewhere on a blockchain and 5 developers that manage all of that. We had decentralized exchanges that opened the market for everyone and provided a really cool experience, because some people say that Web3 and blockchain is still cumbersome to use. Yes, maybe it is compared to Twitter or Facebook, but compared to the traditional banking applications, well, not really. Compared to all of that, actually the interfaces of DeFi applications are super simple, sweet, and delightful to use. And yeah, DeFi proved that it has its place in the world, and the market is large, absolutely large right now. When I was first doing these presentations, we were somewhere here, and I was like super excited that right now it's like somewhere in the middle of the flat line. That right now DeFi and these projects that we are working on are like managing few millions of dollars. It's super exciting. Now it's like billions, and no one is even paying attention anymore. Though it's just the proof that blockchain actually solves something, and there are people that actually use that. There are people that invest in that, but do not invest in the speculation, but invest in the infrastructure that is actually being used somewhere. And interestingly, these projects are not companies. They're not companies anymore. They do not have CEOs. They are so-called decentralized autonomous organizations. So the level of decentralization of these organizations depending on the actual organization. Some of them are more decentralized, some of them less. But the fully decentralized ones are governed completely by the token holders. So during the ICO times, there was this ICO, there was a token sale, some users on the internet acquired. Oh, sorry. People on the internet acquired the tokens, and these tokens gave the voting power over the protocol to the people. And now, for example, MakerDAO is governed fully on the forum. Every single thing about the protocol is discussed on the forum. Everyone can see what they are working on, what are the thoughts of the particular members of the organization, and then everyone with the token can vote over a particular proposal, which is which is actually insane because it's fully democratized and it actually works.
They even know their employees' salaries, which is crazy also.
Yeah. Okay. And if we are reviewing the past, we should review the NFTs again as well.
Yes, so we are going back to NFTs because they have the second life in the present. So do you remember CryptoPunks that I told you like 5 minutes ago? So here they comes with huge prices. For example, like a month ago, someone bought CryptoPunk for $700,000. And here we have the most expensive ones. And the most expensive one was sold for like over $20 million, which is like crazy. And additionally, like every celebrity here, so it's not only like just the image on your computer, and now it's also like your, you can show your status with this CryptoPunk, for example. So here we have the screenshot from Twitter account of Jason Derulo, and he has this CryptoPunk he owns on his like Twitter avatar, which is like big. Yeah, and there were not only like old NFTs like took back to life, there were also invented new ones. And for example, here like these Bored Apes were also like are pretty actually popular these days. And additionally, there were some like this OpenSea, which is a platform for trading NFTs. It was created, and actually they are like currently, I believe they are a unicorn. And here we can see the most popular collections, and of course CryptoPunks at the top, which were for free back then. Okay, so now let's take you to the future, Bartek.
Yeah, so a little bit about the future. I'm gonna actually start with a topic probably very close to most of the people here hearts, which is gaming, right? Because if we think about blockchain and NFTs, then gaming is very close to that. And yeah, right. Why would anyone spend real money on just a gaming item? Do you know that item? What was it? What is it? It's a Magic the Gathering card, and it's worth a lot of money. So you can remember the name. It's Black Lotus. You can Google it afterwards. Though, who would spend real money on the gaming items, and especially on a virtual one? Why would you need this? Well, actually, as we can see today, some people need this, and some people do spend money over these items, and actually like collecting things that are not necessarily traditionally are not necessarily things that we would think about that they are assets. And with this sort of real ownership, you can create new types of trading experience, new type of reality in the ownership of the items. But the one comparison that I really actually like to make is, I don't know if you heard about wargaming, about the tabletop miniature games. So people actually buy miniatures, paint them, collect them, put them on a shelf, and then occasionally, sometimes, take them out, put them on the table, and play battles against each other. And this is sort of a game where you actually own the pieces of the game. And interestingly, very, very nice for the example, is that the game was at some point cancelled by the official publisher Games Workshop. So Games Workshop just said that, yeah, like, we don't like Warhammer Fantasy Battle anymore, we are just cancelling the game. That's more or less the thing that they said. And does that mean that now Games Workshop police comes into the house of each owner of the miniatures and stops them from playing? Well, obviously not. Everyone who owns the miniatures can still play the game. Everyone who owns the miniatures can create their own rules. Everyone who owns the miniatures can do with them whatever they want. And this is how I see the NFTs in the gaming space. So the NFTs in the gaming space are gonna be these bits that you actually own. So if, for example, Hearthstone at some point decides that we are canceling Hearthstone, we are not doing this anymore, it's not profitable anymore, we are just bored, or I don't know, like Elon Musk buys Hearthstone to cancel Hearthstone, whatever else, then if the cards in Hearthstone would be NFTs, then someone would be able to just come and say, okay, so now I'm just gonna create this new interface for the cards that everyone already owns, and nothing is gonna be lost. Maybe the assets are gonna look slightly different, right? The picture is gonna be different because of the rights, or anything else. But the core of the game, the core logic, the whole thing that you spend hours working on actually survives, and it cannot be deleted by anyone ever. But yeah, gaming is not the only thing that's coming.
Yes, so there are also ZKs, which stands for zero knowledge. So maybe let's start from a simple example.
I'm gonna show you what zero knowledge is.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that Bartek knows no difference with these two phones. So he says, okay, these are the same phones.
I have no idea which is which. They are absolutely the same for me.
Yes, so I want to prove Bartek that, okay, these are different phones, and how can I say it without telling him that, okay, this is phone A and this is phone B, because this is what zero knowledge is about. So I want to prove something that I have some knowledge without revealing this thing. So let's say, okay, Bartek, I will give you these two phones, and then take it behind your back, and then switch or no. And show me, and I will tell you whether you switched or no. So, no, they are in the same order. Try again. And now, yeah, you switched them. These are not in the same order. So can you see what is zero knowledge about? We are just, proving that something happened. So, thank you, Bartek. So the same with here with the example of a colorblind person. So we want to prove the person that colors exist. So how to do that? The same as with phones. So we are giving the two different color balls to this guy, and then we say, okay, they are the same order, and then they are different order. And this is how it looks for the person that can see colors. And we can prove not only such, easy stuff. We can do more advanced things with zero knowledge. And for example, and this is actually the underlying technology behind layer 2s, which is which scales blockchain. So here we can actually prove that something happened without revealing it. So without doing this all unnecessary calculations, because this is what in blockchain is very expensive, these calculations. And another thing to mention with the future of blockchain are social networks, because this is like rising trend in blockchain. So here we have an example of Lens protocol, and they are doing this social network stuff. And here we would like to, give people the content that they create. So if your account will be deleted, then you can still have your old posts or photos, etc. So you will own the data. So to summarize, here we had Web 1, which was about information. So people could search in the internet and then see, have the connection to the internet. But then we had Web 2 with all these social media, where you have like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And here with Web 3, we have not only information and social networks, we also can own our data. So we have blockchain and owning data with social networks. Okay, and with that, we would like to also invite you to Warsaw, because we are organizing conference and hackathon in September. So feel free to join us and talk to people, and probably hear more about all of this stuff. So thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Right now we have a time just to ask. So if you have any questions, I'm waiting for your hands. Okay. please.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And hi. Thank you for like very colorful presentation about the history of blockchain and Ethereum. So one thing that you mentioned is the approach of the layer 2 ecosystem, right? So we have ZK knowledge layer 2s, we have got roll-ups, etc., right? And one of the things that probably people who are working on gaming are wondering is which blockchain to choose or which layer to choose to, for example, emit their either NFTs or tokens, etc., right? So currently they have a lot of choice. I saw that one of the previous presentations was that someone chose Polygon, which actually is a sidechain, really, not currently a layer 2. But there's Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, etc. And how do you envision the future where there are so many layer 2s, different projects are on different layers? Wouldn't it be a problem, in your opinion, that like different projects use different ones, and there's problem with interoperability between them?
So you shouldn't definitely choose Terra blockchain. Definitely not this one. Yeah, so maybe I will answer first and then Bartek. So in my opinion, it's not actually important what blockchain will you choose, because you can always switch if you are, in the early phase. And yeah, it's very easy to just, switch network or bridge your to other blockchain. But maybe Bartek will have different opinion.
Yeah, I will maybe only say that I think the most important thing is to be on the network that is being actually used by people. So at this stage, when all these layer 2s emerge, and like for example Polygon, I think for now Polygon is an excellent choice because this is a place where people actually deploy their projects to. In the future, we're gonna see more and more projects being deployed on Arbitrum and Optimism or the others, and then I think people should seek the place with the most traction. But still, even if something chooses something more exotic, then remember that the beauty of the Ethereum layer 2 ecosystem is that it's really interoperable. So even if your thing is on Arbitrum, then you're still it's very easy not to migrate, because that's not even necessary, but just to bridge to other layer 2, and it's going to be available on these other chains as well, if we prepare for that. So I would say it's probably not that important.
Okay, who next? Okay.
Hi, I would like to ask, how do you scale a game dev studio with, for example, DAO or anything? Like, how would you use those tools in existing studio to scale it up for the future?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I'm a blockchain engineer, not a software house founder or a game studio founder. Though I would say probably finding finding people that are passionate about the project is the most important thing. And when it comes to the DAO and that type of stuff, still most people, I think that operating as a DAO is sort of like a technical detail. I think this is like about the community. So actually, if some company wants to evolve into a DAO, the most important thing is to grow a community, like an actual community of people that is active, and then also involve them in the actual process. So open source your code base, invite people to contribute, and then the company will start to look like DAO, and then when it looks like DAO, it can actually transition to be a DAO. Because you cannot, for example, the thing that in my opinion is impossible is that a company will say, okay, now I'm gonna be a DAO, I'm just gonna emit token, sell it, and what now? We still have employees have the token, we are just like now calling ourselves a DAO. That's not a DAO. Like, of course, one can do that, but I think the core idea is to welcome as many people as possible and to be open to the contributions from the outside of the studio.
Yeah, and another thing about DAO is that DAO is very slow. It takes time to execute anything. So I would probably, use DAO only like after the early phase, when you are more advanced, maybe not at the beginning, because it can slow things down a lot.
Yeah, I would agree that it takes time sometimes with DAOs.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next one.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Martin Żetecki, Polish Blockchain Association and Bitcoin Association in Zug. I have a question regarding the first question about the choose the blockchain. For instance, we have a client and we need 1,000 transactions per day. And which blockchain we should choose, because the layer 1, if we talk about the Ethereum, is too expensive, too slow. If we talk about the layer 2, is the same, because the transaction, the cost is something like $1. And what then? What we should to do? Because what I feel today, mostly the project use backend system. They don't use blockchain. They say that we use blockchain, but if we go in depth, we see that it's not blockchain there. Or they use, I don't know, 1 transaction per day, something like scaling the transaction and put everything in the JSON. So the question is, what we should thinking about? How we should thinking about it?
Sure. Yeah. So I think that in such a case, probably the most viable solution. I don't know what's the level of trustlessness that you require, but probably deploying your own sidechain or your own rollup and maybe somehow restricting the access to that, like to external people, would make some sense. I don't mean like blocking it entirely, but just, you know, sort of, for example, by limiting somehow the access, then you can sort of have a piece of infrastructure for yourself that will gather the transactions, bundle them, and then commit to the main chain once a time that is affordable, and it still can be connected to the let's say public infrastructure, though it's gonna be somehow private. I don't know how much doable is that for your particular case, but I would say that probably deploying your own sidechain or rollup is the thing.
Yes, so we can definitely recommend L2Bit, which is the rank of like all layer 2s, and then you can, you know, see how risky is to use these layer 2s. And I would probably also research Polkadot sidechain.
Yes, so we are mostly talking. So I would add 2 things to that. One, actually, a good recommendation with L2Bit, because L2Bit is not only like a dashboard and an aggregator of, you know, like numbers, but also a place where you can sort of research the properties of each of the layer 2s, how it behaves in different situations, and what is it suited for. And yeah, also you can seek outside of the Ethereum ecosystem. Polkadot, I think, is like a viable recommendation as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. Okay.
I have 2 questions. One is, why did you guys make another stablecoin through USD? And second question is, what do you think about the future of algorithmic stablecoins such as USD and recently announced Tron USD?
Absolutely great questions. So I'm going to start with an interesting fact, because you said that why we created another stablecoin, which is TUSD, and you're referring to another to which stablecoin? Because so I'm gonna surprise
Funny
you.
fact.
Funny fact. Actually, TUSD was the first fully regulated stablecoin. It just didn't gain enough traction to be sort of the winner and to be that popular, but it was actually the first one. It's just sort of like, you know, lost the race for the dominance with USDC or USDT, but can't hear you, sorry.
Exchanges behind you. Because you don't have the exchanges behind you.
That's possible. And the second question was about the algorithmic stablecoins. Yeah, so there are some Twitter users that are very, very straightforward with their statements. I'm not going to be that straightforward, but I would say that I do not really believe in the possibility of creating fully stable algorithmic stablecoins that is not backed by something. So, of course, itself, I think some of these mechanisms might be, you know, complete in like the technical sense that it should work, but I think without, you know, a proper amount of collateral or backing by actual US dollars or backing by other types of collateral like Ether, Bitcoin, or whatever, if the value is not actually backed, then I think they're gonna be just like so prone to the attacks that there will always be some, you know, larger player that is gonna be able to attack the coin. Yeah, but I might be wrong.
Okay, thank you.